Did you hear that Donald Trump is celebrating something called the Big Beautiful Bill? That's what we'll review in this Learn English with the News lesson to help you improve all areas of your English. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline, U.S. Congress passes Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, now set to become law. So you'll notice here the name Big Beautiful Bill is in a single quote. This is to let you know this is the official name of the bill. And they have the possessive here to show that the bill belongs to Trump. And U.S. Congress, this is conjugated as third person singular, it, so it's a collective noun. There's more than one person, but they view it as a group. So that's why we have passes, third person singular. It passes. And to clarify, a bill is a proposal or an idea for a new law. It's usually in written form. Now, a bill becomes a law, which is, of course, a legal document once approved. So in this case, when they say passes, it means approves. So that's why they say now set to become law. Now notice this grammar here, set to become. So we have set, and then we have the infinitive. The full expression is to be set and then the infinitive. So the verb you conjugate is the verb to be. In this case, there is no verb to be because often auxiliary verbs or articles are omitted from headlines. Now, to be set plus infinitive means expected or scheduled. For example, Apple is set to release a new iPhone. Or they're set to take the IELTS next month. You can use a future time reference with this. And notice Apple is, that's our verb to be conjugated. They are, as a contraction, that's the verb to be conjugated. Now, because it's just expected or scheduled, there is still a chance it will not happen, but the expectation is that it will happen. With these examples, it sounds like there is more a clear schedule when the phone will be released, when you take your IELTS. There's a specific date that is scheduled. But you can use this in a more general sense. For example, with Jennifer's help, with my help, I'm set to become fluent very soon. So there's no specific time in your calendar circled that says fluent, but it's just a general expectation. And remember that verb to be conjugated. I'm set to become fluent. If you're excited for this, if you know that's possible, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking these notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading the article together. U.S. House Republicans propelled President Donald Trump's $4.5 trillion tax breaks and spending cuts bill to final congressional passage Thursday. Let's review this verb propel, to propel, and it's in the ed form. So it's the past simple form, propelled. So a propeller, which is the noun form, that's what causes a boat or a plane to move forward. So that's the meaning of this. It propelled the bill. It moved the bill forward, and it sounds like quite strongly or aggressively. So it moved it forward quickly. Here's an example you may use. Learning English with the news. What you're doing right now has propelled my fluency. So it has moved my fluency ahead. It has advanced my fluency. And again, there's that sense of quickly. So in this context, it's very positive. And notice I put this in the present perfect. I could have put this in the past simple. In the present perfect, it sounds like there's a result in the present. So now I can get a promotion at work. I can travel confidently. I can take my IELTS, whatever it might be. U.S. House Republicans propelled President Donald Trump's, again, they show it as possessive, just the fact that the bill belongs to him. Now, all of this information is for the bill. So it describes the bill. We could just say President Donald Trump's bill to final congressional passage Thursday. But what type of bill? So it's a $4.5 trillion tax breaks and spending cuts bill. So there are tax breaks. A tax break means you as a person pay less tax. So it's a very positive thing for people who pay tax. It means savings. So a tax break is a tax saving. Spending cuts means that they're going to reduce the amount of government spending. Now notice here, I said $4.5 trillion. I didn't add the S. You would never add the S to trillion, but you would add the S to dollar if it were just the value of something, if it were a noun. But in this case, it's an adjective. It describes the bill, which is why you wouldn't vocalize it. In written form, there's no difference, but in spoken form, you would not say dollars, you would say dollar. $4.5 trillion bill, because this is an adjective that describes the bill. So they advanced quickly or forcefully this bill to final congressional passage. Passage is another way of saying approval, official approval Thursday. Let's continue. Overcoming multiple setbacks. So a setback is a challenge or difficulty you face. So if you're traveling, a setback, remember that's the noun form, a setback. A setback could be missing your flight, getting lost, losing your passport. Those are challenges or difficulties, and you have to overcome them. So overcoming, so that is the verb. You generally overcome a setback, just like you overcome a challenge or difficulty. And if you overcome it, it means you successfully manage it and you can move on. Overcoming multiple, so more than one, multiple setbacks. It's a noun, so there's a plural form. Setbacks to approve his signature second term policy package. So the policy package is this bill, the big, beautiful bill, before a 4th of July deadline. And notice the format of this date. You may be aware that the 4th of July is a holiday in the United States. It's Independence Day. Because it's the name of a holiday, it's a proper noun. That's why 4th is capitalized, because it's a proper noun. Now, any other date that isn't a holiday would not be written like this. The standard way to write a date is month and day, and then year if it were there. So July 3rd, before a deadline. This date is an adjective. It tells you more information about the deadline. That's why we have a, because a is an article that belongs to the noun deadline, because deadline is a singular countable noun. I have a deadline this month. A deadline, a 4th of July deadline. This is only written this way because it is the name of a holiday. Otherwise, you would just say a July 3rd deadline, a July 5th deadline.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
The House approved the bill, the big, beautiful bill, in a 218 to 214 vote Thursday. Okay, so this is the result of the vote. So notice when you share a result or a score, you can use the preposition to. In sports, you could say Team A won 5-2. So this is saying the score for Team A, the winner, was 5. The score for Team B, the loser, was 2. 5-2. 5-2. But this 2 is unstressed, so it's pronounced as ta. 5-2. Ta-2. 5-2. Now, in written form, you'll also see just as a dash, 5-2. But when you verbalize this dash, you verbalize it as 2. But pronunciation is ta. 5-2. Now, you could also say Team A won by 3 points, or Team B lost by 3. So that's just to show some standard phrasings for scores. And this is a score, or you can think of it as a result, not a score because it's not a sport, so more of a result, the result of the vote. After the Senate narrowly approved the bill Tuesday in a 51-50. So exactly what I explained. And notice how I pronounced it, 51-50, 51-50 vote. So here we have a vote. And again, this is just telling you what type of vote. A 51-50 vote that required Vice President J.D. Vance to break a tie. So what's a tie? You probably know this because of sports. A tie would be 2-2, 5-5. It's the same score. That's a tie. And the collocation is you break a tie, which means one party has to gain a point. That's how you break a tie. A minimum of 1 point. Of course, it can be more. In a sports context, you could say the score was tied. So here the expression is to be tied, and that's the same number. Your verb to be is what's conjugated. So was, because the score is it, third person singular, and this is in the past simple. The score was tied 2-2. 2-2. I don't know why I keep using 2 because that's difficult pronunciation. So here, let's do 3. 3-3. 3-3. 3-3. Notice you almost don't hear that dash being verbalized, but it's there as a very unstressed 2. 3-3. 3-3. 3-3. I'll use a different score. 5-5. 5-5. 5-5 until the last minute of the game, or until the last 10 minutes of the game, or whatever it might be. So again, don't forget this collocation. Someone had to break a tie. So in this context, because it was a 51-50 vote, you can say the bill was approved. To be approved, so was is in the past simple. The bill was approved by 1 vote, because here it was by 3 points, but in this context, the noun is vote, by 1 vote. And to be more dramatic, you might say by only 1 vote, or by only 1 single vote. So these words are only there to intensify it, but they're not required. Let's keep reading. President Donald Trump celebrated the passage of his domestic agenda bill. So passage, again, remember that means the approval of his domestic agenda bill, as a phenomenal victory for the U.S., touting its tax cuts and funding for border security. Let's review the verb touting. Here it's in the ing form. Notice that pronunciation, out. That's the vowel sound, tout, touting. So this means celebrating, promoting, or praising. So Trump touted its tax cuts and funding for border security. And the it means the bills. So Trump touted the bill's tax cuts. A tax cut is a tax reduction. So cut means reduction. We saw that with spending cuts previously, and they used the word tax break, a tax break. So it's same thing. A tax break is a tax cut. So to get a tax break, for you to receive a tax break, which means a tax savings, the government has to cut taxes. The government has to reduce taxes for you to get a tax break. So the focus is a little different because the government cuts taxes for you to get a tax break. Coming back to our verb tout, remember that vowel? Well, you see it right here. It contains the word out. And that's exactly the pronunciation you want. Tout. So you can say the ad touted the phone's long battery life. It promoted, it highlighted, it praised as a reason why you should buy this phone. Or she touted her experience as a reason to vote for her, or as a reason to hire her, whatever it might be. But notice you vote for someone, but you hire someone. So a reason to vote for her, or I'll say to hire her. You vote for someone, you hire someone. Let's keep going. It was a long shot effort to compile a lengthy list of GOP priorities. So if you compile a list and then a lengthy list, so lengthy describes the list, it means, of course, there are many different things. So that would be lengthy list. And compile means put it together. Now, a long shot effort. I really like this one. It was a long shot effort. What do you think that means? What type of effort was it? A long shot effort is when you have a very low chance of success. So maybe only a 5% chance or a 10% chance of succeeding. So maybe there is this amazing promotion at work and you're not qualified. You're a junior employee and the promotion requires 15 years of experience, but you submit your resume anyway. It's a long shot, but hey, you might get it. So it's a long shot. It's a long shot. We often just say that. You could say it's a long shot effort, but it's more common to just say, I know it's a long shot, but why not? It will be a great experience just to apply. I know it's a long shot. So when you use it the way I did, long shot becomes the noun itself. So when it's an adjective, you have the hyphen here, long dash shot. But with the noun form, you don't need the hyphen. The pronunciation is exactly the same. I know it's a long shot, but I applied for the promotion. Native speakers use this a lot, so I recommend getting comfortable with it. Let's review this again. It was a long shot effort, or without the adjective form, you could just say it was a long shot to compile a lengthy list of GOP priorities into what they called his one big beautiful bill. So again, this is the official name of the bill. And now they're telling you what the bill is, an 800 plus page measure. So again, 800 describes the measure, which is another way of saying policy or bill. An 800 page. If you used it as a noun, you would say the bill is 800 pages. 800 pages. But here, an 800 plus page, this is an adjective, which is why there's no S on it. And plus just means more than. So it could be 805, 810, for example. And in written form, if you wanted to show this plus, it's very common to just have the plus sign in more informal writing. We prepared a 30 plus page report. So this is what would be used in most emails and messages. And then remember, this is the adjective form. As the noun form, the bill is 800 pages. You add the S because it's a noun, singular, plural. The report is 30 pages. Again, that would be the noun. with Democrats unified in opposition. So if the Democrats are unified, it means they are together and they all agree, but they agree to oppose. So in opposition means they are opposed to the bill. They are against the bill. They do not want the bill, and they're unified. So everyone agrees that they do not want to approve the bill. With Democrats unified in opposition, the bill will become a defining measure of Trump's return to the White House, aided by Republican control of Congress. So this aided by means the fact that they were able to pass the bill is because Republicans controlled Congress. Let's keep going. At its core, the package's priority is $4.5 trillion in tax breaks enacted in 2017. Okay, let's review before we go on. Let's review at its core. This is a great phrase. Notice that this introduces the sentence. The sentence would be grammatically correct without it. So keep that in mind. It gives more information. At its core, this means the main purpose or priority of the package, which is the bill, the big, beautiful bill. So you can think of it as at its basic level or fundamental level, essential level. You could also use the word instead of at its core. You could say fundamentally or essentially. You could use one word instead. So how about this one? At its core, English is about communication, not perfection. Would you agree with that? Fundamentally or essentially, English is about communication, not perfection. So you can say fundamentally as well at the very beginning. So I'll just copy this for you. You could say fundamentally, essentially, or at its core. But remember, all of these, this part must be a completed sentence. So if you remove this part, it has to be grammatically correct. At its core, the package's priority, so in this case, the priority belongs to the package, is $4.5 trillion. So you would vocalize this as S because it's the value is $4.5 trillion in tax breaks. Now, if you use this as an adjective, you would say is a tax break, a $4.5 trillion tax break. That's how you would use it as an adjective, but this is not the adjective form. So you would add that S. So again, they're using the word tax breaks, which remember is tax savings. So more money goes into your pocket, assuming you were a taxpayer in the US. In tax breaks enacted in 2017. So enacted means that this was approved as law in 2017 as well, during Trump's first term. So when Trump was president in 2017, this is what he approved. That would expire if Congress failed to act, along with new ones. Okay, so these tax savings or tax breaks were originally put in place in 2017, enacted, and they'll expire, which means they will no longer be available to you as a taxpayer if Congress did not approve this big, beautiful bill. But there are also new tax breaks. So that's what this along with new ones. So we have these old ones and then there are new ones as well. Let's keep going. There's also a hefty investment. Hefty means large in amount. A common alternative would be sizable. There's also a sizable investment. You could say she made a hefty charitable contribution. She made a sizable donation would be another word for charitable contribution. You could simply say donation. Or maybe it was really hot or really cold. So you say, my electricity bill this month is hefty. So it's large, it's sizable. There's also a hefty investment, some $300 billion. So by saying some, it means approximately around. And this is a noun, so you would add that S to dollars, $350 billion in national security and Trump's deportation agenda, and to help develop the defensive system over the US. So this is what the funds, the investment money, the funds is going to be used for. And think about this preposition choice. They said over the US. So right now this is over my head, right? So imagine this is the US. So over the US. So when I see this defensive system over the US, I think of planes, drones, satellites, things that are physically over the US. If it were things on the ground, it would be in the US. So that's the preposition you would use because the US is a confined space geographically. So you would use in to mean anything on the ground in the country. You could also say across the US to represent the entirety. So you could say in or across the US. And that could be anything. It could be drones and planes, satellites, or it could be tanks and other security. Let's keep going. To help offset the lost tax revenue. Okay, so to offset it, so remember, they're going to have these tax breaks. So let's say this is money needed for the country and this is money available. But if there's tax breaks, you as a taxpayer pay less to the US government. So there is less money available. So to offset it, it means to make up that difference. So if that difference is $20 million, then they need to gain $20 million. They need to bring it back up to there. So you can think of it as to balance or to reduce the negative effect or compensate for the negative effect, because the negative effect is less money from taxes, but they need that money, of course. So to help offset the lost tax revenue, so revenue just means the money collected. The package includes $1.2 trillion in cutbacks. So they're getting less money from taxpayers, from people living in the US paying taxes. So they're getting less money from taxpayers. So to offset it, to balance it, the government is going to spend less money. So it's going to be balanced or even again. Now, of course, it's not probably exactly, but relatively. So the cutbacks represents reduced government spending, but they're going to do that in specific areas. So the areas are Medicaid healthcare. So this is healthcare for people who cannot afford to pay for healthcare, and food stamps. This is to provide food for people who cannot afford to buy food. Largely by imposing new work requirements. So how are they going to reduce spending on healthcare and food stamps? Well, it sounds like they're going to impose, which means another way of saying enforce. So make a new policy or rule or regulation around work requirements. So maybe you will have to work in order to get access to these. I don't know. That's just an example of what a work requirement might be, including for some parents and older people, and a major rollback of green energy tax credits. Okay, so this is the other way they're going to offset the tax breaks by cutting back on government spending. So they're going to roll back, which means reduce green energy tax credits. You may know this from Walmart. Walmart, the store, is always talking about rolling back their prices, which means reducing their prices. So previously it was $4.99. And now they've rolled it back to $4.50. And then they roll it back again to maybe not 200. That's a big rollback. So $4.25 or something like that. So that's the terminology that Walmart specifically uses, but you can use it in a more general sense. And that is the end of the article. So I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. U.S. Congress passes Trump's big, beautiful bill, now set to become law. U.S. House Republicans propelled President Donald Trump's $4.5 trillion tax breaks and spending cuts bill to final congressional passage Thursday, overcoming multiple setbacks to approve his signature second-term policy package before a 4th of July deadline. The House approved the bill in a 218 to 214 vote Thursday, after the Senate narrowly approved the bill Tuesday in a 51 to 50 vote that required Vice President J.D. Vance to break a tie. President Donald Trump celebrated the passage of his domestic agenda bill as a phenomenal victory for the U.S., touting its tax cuts and funding for border security. It was a long-shot effort to compile a lengthy list of GOP priorities into what they called his one big beautiful bill, an 800-plus page measure. With Democrats unified in opposition, the bill will become a defining measure of Trump's return to the White House, aided by Republican control of Congress. At its core, the package's priority is $4.5 trillion in tax breaks enacted in 2017 during Trump's first term that would expire if Congress failed to act, along with new ones. There's also a hefty investment, some $350 billion in national security and Trump's deportation agenda, and to help develop the defensive system over the U.S. To help offset the lost tax revenue, the package includes $1.2 trillion in cutbacks to the Medicare, health care, and food stamps, largely by imposing new work requirements, including for some parents and older people, and a major rollback of green energy tax credits.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.